TikTok, love it or hate it, it's become wildly popular over the last few years, especially in America. It is estimated that roughly between 100 and 150 million Americans, 1/3 to 1/2 of the US population, roughly, are on the app on a regular basis and use it as a source of news, entertainment, and education, with almost 5 million small businesses working off of the platform, many of them small and big-time creators like myself. It also sits as the 6th most popular social media platform in the entire world, behind other huge names like Facebook and YouTube. That's not half bad for an app founded in 2016, or 2014 if you account for its predecessor. Of course, over the years, there have been plenty of valid concerns brought up about TikTok, from its retention span on younger viewers to data security, especially as it relates to their parent company ByteDance, which is suspected to have connections or to be beholden to the Chinese government. This, thankfully, is not what I'm here to talk about today. Instead, I want to talk for a bit about an American law that is being proposed right now, one that, on the surface, claims to be focused on helping safeguard Americans' user data, and will, quote, authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries. Usually in my videos, I like to talk things up a little bit at the beginning, create an interesting setup, and then briefly cover the history of the topic for anyone unfamiliar before moving into my actual point. Luckily for me, you guys aren't stupid, and if you've been anywhere near the internet in the last few weeks, you most likely know exactly what the Restrict Act is, and if not, you've most likely at the very least seen calls to push back against the act, citing it as a drastic overreach of government authority. If you already know everything you need to know about the Restrict Act, I encourage you to go to TikTokVoteTracker.com or check down in the description to look up your state's federal representatives, and to either write, email, or call them to state your displeasure with the Restrict Act and to state your commitment to supporting their opponent in the next campaign should they support this legislation. We gotta hit them where it hurts. Their balls. Their wallets. And their balls. For the rest of you, let's talk briefly about what the bill itself will do. I know this is a huge departure from my normal content, which is mainly focused around internet and gaming culture. But this is a massive deal that will have a drastic effect on how we interact and use the internet and the larger e-commerce ecosystem. I try not to talk about politics in my videos too much, mostly because it just starts flame wars in the comments, and you guys are already lobbing a lot of heavy political decisions down there anyway, and I'd just rather avoid that. At least until I drop my video talking about how Caesar's Legion was right all along. Ave true to Kaiser! I do want to say before we get into things that I am not a constitutional scholar, nor am I an expert when it comes to legal languages. While I am a political science student and continue to be very active in my own regard when it comes to legality and policy, please do not take everything I mention at face value. People much more experienced with these matters than I will have a much better understanding and be able to articulate it better. I just want to talk about what I personally understood of the bill. So, what will the Restrict Act do exactly? The bill states that it grants the Secretary of Commerce the ability to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries, which the bill names as China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela while under the regime of its current president, Nicolas Maduro. The bill also grants the Secretary of Commerce the ability to assign and or remove this designation at will, with Congress being able to introduce consideration related to the removal or designation. Basically, the Secretary can tell us who the bad guy is related to internet security, and Congress can object if they feel it's unjustified. This decision will be based off evidence of long-term patterns or serious instances of conduct that would be considered a national security risk to the government or U.S. citizens. So think like election influence or international spying. The Secretary also holds the ability to create a list of foreign persons that may be subject to prohibition and or restrictions as it relates to the Act. Civil and criminal punishments is something we'll talk about in a bit. The Secretary's jurisdiction extends primarily to information and communication technology services that had specifically over 1 million active users or 1 million physical sales during the previous calendar year, which would include apps like TikTok or computing devices like Samsung phones and Lenovo computers. Basically what this means is that if Samsung started collecting data on people by using the microphone by leaving it always on, the Secretary could step in and intervene with the approval of the President. The President can also advise the Attorney General of the United States to encourage a company in question to sell, like we see them trying to do with TikTok. Or they can seek appropriate relief, which basically just means that they can sue for financial compensation. If need be, and in cooperation with relative authorities, those found in violation of this act may themselves or their property be inspected, searched, detained, seized, or have temporary denial orders placed upon them as a result of violation of this act. Sounds fair, right? Well, maybe, but trust me, this is where all that comes to a screeching halt. At the top of the bill, we see that the plain language cites review and prohibition of certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries. The main focus here, of course, being foreign adversaries, but the crucial focus here being persons in the United States. Before, I said that the Secretary would have jurisdiction over any software or hardware with over 1 million active users or sales. And I did mean any software or hardware, not just ones that originate from outside of the United States. This means that any application, software, or hardware with over 1 million active users or 1 million US sales is also subject to this jurisdiction. This would, naturally, extend to things such as wireless and mobile services, satellite and cables, and other such physical infrastructures. However, it goes much, much farther than that. Just think about some of the software that you yourself have used over the past few years. Ever since 2020, have you been using Steam a lot more? Watching more YouTube videos? Have you been one of the 150 million Americans on TikTok? Have you been checking out Instagram more often? Have you become more reliant on Google and iCloud services? Have you been using ChatGPT a lot lately? Should the US government choose to begin restricting access to specific kinds of content, such as which they would claim to be from or directly influenced by a foreign adversary, such like content could be removed from these platforms. As stated before, the government can effectively sue any platform responsible or involved with activities that they would otherwise deem an unacceptable security risk. Naturally, such sites would become a lot stricter with what they allow on their platforms. Oh, it doesn't stop there though. Remember, any software with over 1 million active users or sales. Have you been using messaging platforms like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, or Telegram? Have you been trying to avoid messaging apps altogether and have instead just been using your phone's text messaging? What about public closed software messaging applications like Second Life or Discord? Have you been using those lately? What about TeamSpeak, voice chat in Fallout 76, text chat in Rust or Overwatch? Did you buy a Ring doorbell off of Amazon using your PayPal account last year? Well, guess who has jurisdiction over all 3 of those service points now? Tesla smart cars, DJI drones, Netgear internet modems, any brand of electronic device that accepts, stores, or outputs data, and any service related to these items would now fall under the Secretary of Commerce's jurisdiction. That's fine though, right? If they do end up banning Reddit or a specific page that I like, I can just use a VPN to get around it. Wrong. Networking software like VPNs also fall under such jurisdiction, meaning that if you were found to have used a VPN to circumvent government content restrictions, you could be slapped with a civil or even criminal penalties. With that perfect segue, let's talk about penalties for breaking these restrictions. To quickly summarize the difference between civil and criminal penalties, it's basically a difference between a fine and jail time. Of course, under the Restrict Act, neither is a suitable alternative, because if you land under the civil penalties, you could be slapped with a $250,000 fine, or twice the value of any transaction that violates the act, whichever hurts more. Any property related to this violation is also subject to what is known as civil forfeiture, basically meaning, bippity-boppity, your computer is now government property. A criminal offense is even worse though, because not only is your computer and basically anything and everything you own now belong to good old Uncle Sam, but you'll also be slapped with a $1 million fine, and, if you're a US citizen, could also be imprisoned for up to 20 years. Now, this all sounds pretty bad, right? Surely there must be some oversight and accountability when it comes to nope! Outside of what is outlined as allowable by way of this act, which as far as I've seen is practically nothing, any action taken by jurisdiction of this bill by way of the President or the Secretary of Commerce, and the findings therein, cannot be subject to administrative review or judicial review in any federal level court. If you yourself have become a target of one of these restrictions and feel that it is unconstitutional, you have exactly 60 days to prove it and must do so specifically in the Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia Circuit. So if you live practically anywhere other than the northeastern part of the United States, get ready to basically uproot your entire life to fight what may effectively be a losing battle. If by some miracle you are still watching up to this point, huge props. This is a massive departure from the rest of my content, and I cannot express how much I appreciate you sticking around to get informed about what I feel is a very serious topic. During the TikTok hearings, Georgia Representative Earl Leroy Buddy Carter, the dipstick who asked TikTok CEO Shoji Chu if the app scans the user's eyes for signs of retinal dilation, thanked Mr. Chu for being able to bring together both Democrats and Republicans in a bipartisan effort to hold TikTok responsible. Ironically enough, however, it would seem that both the hearing and the subsequent Restrict Act have had the exact same effect on the US populace, as I have seen people on both the left and the right pushing back against the Restrict Act as an unreasonable overextension of government authority. Also, as a side note, a lot of people are theorizing that the question Representative Carter asked was less stupid and more of a real-life algorithmic engineering question. Really makes you wonder what kind of background Carter must have had to be able to ask such a sophisticated question. Or perhaps, what sort of clever individual paid him to ask. I'm sure all those meta stocks that he and other members of the congressional hearing own is just a coincidence, has nothing to do with anything. These, however, are just my thoughts. And unlike other videos, I am not interested in hearing yours. Instead, I would encourage everyone to visit TikTokVoteTracker.com or any other state representative lookup website, click on your state, and either call or email your state representative to let them know you strongly disagree with the Restrict Act, and that there will be major ramifications should they support it. Employment ramifications, of course. I'm not out here trying to speed run getting banned by YouTube for promoting political violence. In your call or your email, be polite yet firm. You can have software like OpenAI or ChatGPT write a letter for you. Or you can check the link in the description for a template that I wrote, which you can then edit as you see fit. I know that many people have varying opinions about TikTok. Some enjoy it, others despise it. And whatever your thoughts are on the app are yours to hold, and they are valid. However, at this moment, the United States government is trying to weaponize fear to silence people and make it harder for us to reach each other. In this day and age, communication is the most vital resource that we or anyone else have. That's something worth fighting for, at least. As we all know, the arc of history is a long one, and it doesn't seem like much changes day to day for the better. Even so, a better tomorrow is only built on the hard work and dedication of those who wish to make it so. Do what you can. Until next time, I thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe and stuff, and with any luck, I will see you all out there in the wasteland.